Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to SATAL 2020 on this fine Tuesday morning, or whatever time it is around the world. I'm your host, Moltar, joined as always by the mustache man, Billy Waugh Merlin. Billy, how's your morning? You and I were talking briefly there in just a minute ago that we've both been kind of in a funk. I didn't feel very well yesterday. Hopefully, I don't have the Rona. You said you were just having a little bit of trouble waking up.
Yeah, no, I think I'm not sure if it was food poison or something, but I was a little messed up this morning. But good to go now, hopefully. So ready to get through this.
I'm ready to get through this too. Well, not get through it. I'm excited for it. We got TAW, the Art of Warfare Wolfpack, their Gold League team taking on JG78 in this. I think this is going to be a Napa taking on Maycop. So I don't think we've seen this map yet this year. This is a boring song. I don't think we've seen this map yet this year. Recently, we've seen a lot of hills. I won't call them mountains. On Saturday, we saw some mountains, but this is going to be flat. Like, there's nothing. I mean, there's some hills down to the south. North of Sochi, south of Maycop, and there's some hills south of Anapa, south of the Krimsk area, but there are decent ways down there. And we've seen, Billy, I think you'll say the same. We've seen some teams try and take advantage of those hills, but sometimes when they try and take advantage of those hills, bad things can happen. Teams have a tendency to get separated, and we haven't really seen anybody try and take advantage of them effectively.
No, I'd agree with that. I don't think we've really seen anybody go into those mountains and then come out victorious. It's usually the person chasing into the mountains or kind of holding over the mountains that ends up coming out of that victorious. So I'd like to see teams just come up with a better strategy of how to use that terrain. I don't know if we've seen that done well enough yet. Not that it's an easy thing to do to take a team down there and then turn the tides and kind of pull that off is a challenge in itself. So,
well, I think that sets it up. Again, this is TAW Wolfpack taking on JG78. Let's jump into a Napa taking on Maycop. I think that's the mission. I know it's a Napa. I think it's Maycop. But let's jump into the sim, see how these guys are going to get on. Here we go. So, Bill, you have any pre-connotations or anything about how this is going to go down? TAW won Gold League last year, so do we think that is going to be a precursor to this? You think they're going to show the same type? We haven't seen them fly this year. You think they're going to show up the same as they did at the end of last year?
I would have to assume we can see some consistency out of them. It's been a fairly consistent group for quite some time now. I know we've seen Jagerschwader 78.
I just call him JG78.
JG78. I know.
Yeah, just don't even attempt it. I can't. I'm sorry to my fellow Germans out there, but I can't. It's almost as bad as Icelandic, or what's that, Scandinavian, or what? Iceland has some. They got some really long names. It's almost as bad. I just can't. I can't do it. So you were saying. Sorry to cut you off, but you were saying.
Well, I know that those guys have been working to improve quite a bit lately. I know we see them here and there on the public servers and stuff. So I like to think this is going to be a fairly even match. I did not watch this one ahead of time on the TAC view, so I do not know how things are going to go here. So this one is as new to me as it is to you in that sense.
Well, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Speaking of which, you guys should notice that the stream should be smoother. I think I fixed what was going on with making it really jumpy. There was no frame limiter on anything. I tweeted about this a couple days ago. There should be a live TAC view today. At least there should be. Pretty sure. Should be a live TAC view every day. I don't think I got rid of it. But there wasn't a frame limiter, so one of the streams or one of the DCS instances was rocking like 150 FPS, and then the other one was like, I can't do it, and would drop down to 15. But I've limited them both to 60 because that's the Twitch limit. I'm at 1080p 60 in source. So just be aware that hopefully that's fixed. ManBearPig says TACView is not working. If TACView doesn't work, well, then I may have to fix it afterwards. Maybe I screwed something up. This is not an ingress song. That's a better ingress song.
I was able to just log in. It's working for me. If you try connecting using the real-time telemetry option.
Yeah. Make sure you use real-time telemetry and not shared debriefing.
And make me change your port too, because it's it defaults you to 42674.
Man, Bear Pig. It may be Windows Firewalls freaking out on you too. So if it still doesn't work, I would suggest you open the advanced portion of a Windows firewall and unblock those ports. So taking a look at what TAW Wolfpack is flying, we've got 3 18s and a 16. No Tomcats, but 18, I think what everybody knows it for, at least in SATAL, is a plethora of weapons. You think weapon amounts and weapons management is going to be at play here?
JF17?
No, it's not a JF17.
I was showing one JF17 for JG.
Oh, maybe it is. We haven't seen one yet. Sorry, I haven't looked at what JG78's taken. We're going to wait till they take off. We're sitting here watching TAW get reorganized here on the runway at a Napa. So I don't know what JG78's taken yet.
I'm just checking the listing on the Splash One website, and it does show one JF17. I was just trying to, I saw it and it kind of caught me off guard. I was trying to think if I had seen one in competition yet.
I don't think we have.
Now,
not that I'm aware of.
Interesting.
I know there are some teams that are taking virtually all JF17s, but I don't know.
It's interesting. I mean, I love flying the thing. I think it fights pretty well. I mean, it doesn't have necessarily some of the ranges and all of the overall categories that I think some of the Western jets have. But, you know, it's a pretty formidable aircraft from my experience. And I'm starting to get up there in the hours now with it. And definitely enjoy the creature comforts of it, that's for sure.
That is true. Speaking of creature comforts and stuff, well, not necessarily creature comforts, but we did discover something yesterday with the help of Griffin Squadron and TAW. And this is not going to be at play in this match, but supposedly in the latest patch, there is a bug where, and I won't tell everybody exactly how this works, but there is a bug where if people are jamming, then active missiles won't hit them. So regardless of how fast they're flying, they won't. So that R77 doesn't play into that. It's more of the missiles that were updated with the latest missile API. So I don't think there's been any issues with it yet, but because that was uncovered, jammers in SATAL have been banned completely. So I realize that some aircraft have internal jammers, and what ends up happening there's some things that the teams have to do or send to me in order to make sure that no one's using internal jammers. But jammers, you're not allowed to use them, unfortunately, until ED, we confirm that ED has fixed that. I think it's probably an issue with Home on Jam. That's my assumption, at least, when they implemented the new missile changes with the 120. So that's my assumption.
Sounds par for the course
at what's going on.
Who we're talking about here?
They've been that last patch was pretty good. I mean, they fixed a lot of stuff.
Very fair. You solid point.
But there are some issues.
We got a long way to go before they made up for February to May, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
as a consumer.
Yeah, this is true. Chat, how's your morning? Xander says real-time TAC view is indeed working. Okay, well, that's good to hear. And I need to fix the score because that score is not right. Update. There we go. Now the score is correct. Looks like these guys are taking off. I can hear the engine spooling. There goes the two aircraft as the lead ship. I couldn't catch who that was. Looks like it's Impact and Bad Lego. And then we're waiting on... Who's back here? Spectrum, I think, is who this is. And Preacher to depart, and they're just starting their run. I think the F-18s, granted, F-18s encompass virtually an entire side with TAW, are going to they're going to have some impact today. I think the weapons, the number of weapons are going to play a role. And the 18 is just able to carry more weapons than virtually any other aircraft. Granted, you are limited to 6 actives, but I think that is going to play a role here.
Frankly, too, taking the double or the 2 double outside pylons, at least in my opinion, it has a pretty adverse effect on the drag. If you're going up against a bunch of like F5s or MiG-21s or stuff that you're not going to have to worry about, getting inside your reach and having to maneuver rather, quickly or evade rather quickly. Those double racks probably aren't as big of an issue. But if you're going up against some air superiority fighters where you're going to be having to maneuver possibly a little bit quicker than you might expect to, I just feel like those double pylons on the outside really, I mean, it's probably debatable. I'm sure somebody could do some testing and provide some numbers on it, but at the end of the day, it just feels like it slows you down a little bit coming around the edges there, and it's almost not worth the extra 2 missiles on it, in my opinion.
Well, especially when you're only able to carry 6 actives, that definitely could be.
You don't. That's why I saw guys carrying 3 bags with the 2 outside pylons. I just don't. I mean, if you need 3 bags to come into SATAL, I mean, maybe on one of the longer ones, I don't know. I feel like the Hornet is so good on fuel. You're taking way too much. You're not going to burn through it or use it. You're just wasting fuel and forcing those 120s on a pylon that they probably don't want to be on in the first place. If you look at the way the wing is shaped, the wing gets exposed, at that portion on that outer pylon, and there's just a lot hanging off the edge there to kind of catch as you come around. So I just would like to see guys avoid that strategy with the 3 bags there.
The 3 bags, I mean, it can help. Getting to altitude quickly is nice. So that
it is.
I do like that.
You could. There's ways to get around taking 3 bags here. I just feel like in the Hornet, I think that the plane is just pretty darn good at conserving fuel. Like if you feel like you need that much fuel for this, maybe you need to look at how you're utilizing the engine.
Maybe I've started taking 3 bags in the 18. It's nice to use that center line to be able to take off, burn to altitude, and still have 12,000 pounds of fuel for ingress.
You're talking about the 16.
Yeah, sorry, the 16.
16, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Taking that center line and just using it to get up to where you need to go, and then cruising around is by all means the strategy for me at the moment. Just having that thing to push you up to altitude is beneficial as well. Glad they finally added that thing a while back.
So map location is indeed a Napa taking on Maycop. JG78 versus TAW. JG78 is 3 16s and a JF17. Meanwhile, TAW is 3 18s and a 16. So an all NATO setup. There are no Red 4 aircraft in this. I mean, JF17 is debatable, but I prefer it to be. I really think the JF17 is a NATO aircraft. I mean, Pakistan.
Wholeheartedly disagree with you. There are Chinese bases being protected by Pakistan soldiers. I'm going to go ahead and say Pakistan has drifted out of NATO friendship at this point, and it's pretty much beholden.
Let me back up. The time frame that DCS with the aircraft that are in it, I'm going to say that the JF-17, this version is a NATO aircraft.
It's certainly very Western influenced. I mean,
that's where I'm going to go.
From off-the-shelf commercial Western parts and stuff.
Because the time frame that we have in DCS is kind of like that early 2000s, right? That's
right. But either way, you'd still have to go talk to China to get one.
Yeah, but you can talk to China to get anything.
That's true. But that kind, I think most NATO leadership would tell you that kind of takes you out of NATO favor at that point.
I think the title's right. Oh, yeah. Title mismatch. I got you.
Yep.
No, at the very beginning of the stream, it wasn't right, and I have since fixed it. So you were probably just slow. I blame you, Orotar, man. That's all on you, brother. TAW is starting to separate. They're not flying in any type of formation here. They're all singletons. They're separated by at least 6 miles. Preacher's the closest to another TAW friendly, and he's separated by 5 miles. And there goes a long 120, and we are in the A weapon restriction, so 120Cs are a thing, and these guys are already within effective weapon range, as that 120 was launched from around 35 miles going in here. So Bad Lego is the first one to take a shot. He's supporting that missile. He's cranking and diving, not hugely aggressive. You can see Impact. If we flip over to the new camera, Impact is the man over his shoulder 9 miles to his north, is also cranking and diving. He did not shoot, though, so the only missile that was launched was Bad Lego's 120. And it is now, that 120 is now 12 miles from its intended target, which we can see here. It is coming in on Ma. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. It's coming in on Ma. If we grab Ma, can we see that missile yet? I don't see it. He's over Mach 1, descending through 10,000 feet. And that missile's not going to be able to do anything. Yeah, that missile's trash. That missile lost its target. So if we jump back and look at the map, that missile is off on its own. It lost its target, and it's just going its own thing. Unless it's on Mutt. Maybe it's trying to pull lead on Mutt. That's possible. Maybe. I don't know. But Bad Lego, after that initial shot, turned cold, and that is where TAW has stayed. Everyone from TAW is now cold. Looks like they're taking a hugely defensive approach. They're now getting ready to overfly Krimsk. How high are they? 27,000, 24,000, 24,000, and 21,000.
Quite a bit
something
more separation going on for JG78 right now. TAW
There-
is much tighter.
There's separation going on both sides. I mean, if TAW is a little bit tighter, but in their initial incursion, they looked very much how JG78 does now. They've tightened up on their egress, and I'm going to assume that was because Bad Lego and Impact turned cold before Spectrum and Preacher turned cold, so they ended up being kind of on top of each other. But if we look at JG78, Coma and Mutt are now turning away. So nobody's really trying to push very far in here, which is kind of strange because there's no Phoenix, there's no Tomcat, there's no Turkey. So you're not worried about that long telephone pole-sized boomstick that can reach out and poke you in the butt from 60 miles. I mean, nobody likes being poked in the butt, but when you got an arm that can reach out and poke you in the butt from 60 miles, that in and of itself makes you a little worrisome. And it's constantly in the back of your mind when somebody can reach out and poke you from that far away. So it's a little strange that these guys are being this defensive. You can really, as long as you manage your altitude, you can really push inside 20 miles pretty effectively. I mean, with the 120C variant, you can push inside 15, and as long as you defend early before you get that missile warning, you're going to be fine. But these guys seem to be just taking precautions and making sure that they don't eat an unseen missile, which I do like. I can't really fault them for it. I just hope that their fuel management is going to be good enough to maintain this type of posture.
I think we're seeing both teams kind of just sizing each other up right now from the looks of it. A lot of, something I bring up a lot was composure on shooting on that first initial run. And I think we saw only one missile fired there. So a nice change in pace. And I think that may actually is maybe the smarter move in some of these situations.
Yeah, looking at what TAW is doing, riding along with one of the missiles fired by JG78, and you can see that there's its intended target 9 miles down to the right at its 2 o'clock. TAW is just taking a really defensive posture at this particular time, and I kind of wonder, Billy, if TAW's intention, since they've seen that JG78 is taking 4 aircraft that can only carry 6 missiles apiece, I wonder if their intention is to run them out of weapons.
And that's certainly a valid strategy within SATAL. I think trying to bleed your opponent down before engaging is frankly the smarter way to go, because if you're good enough at evading and you're confident enough in your plan and what you're doing, then running them out of missiles before attacking, I think becomes an obvious advantage for everybody listening here, right? them going into that, where towards the end of the match where things tend to get a little bit more intense and tighter, having that missile advantage can mean the difference between winning and losing. I think in a lot of cases we see here. So.
Yep. Well, let's take a look at some of the TAW aircraft. Specifically, we're going to look at TAW Spectrum, and I'm going to assume that TAW is taking a similar loadout across the board. So we're looking at TAW Spectrum's F-18. He's in a left-hand bank. I think he's trying to get back with bad Lego. I'm looking at the map that you guys can't see. I think he's trying to reorganize with his wingman. But the F-18 is carrying 2 more missiles. So if we compare this to the 16s that are being flown by JG78, which we can see now, the 16s, meanwhile, are only carrying 6 120s. So the 18's carrying 6 120s, but it's also carrying those 2 AIM-9s. So the 18s for TAW get the 2 missile advantage. So they've got 2 extra weapons. Granted, they're not as long firing, but typically in a SATAL match, they start long range, and then they deteriorate and get closer and closer and closer as weapons start to run out, so on and so forth. So those AIM-9s could play a role because JG78 may not have weapons remaining by the time we get to the time frame in the SATAL round, as we typically see, where merges start to happen or people start to get closer. Cronin asked, by the way, anyone can explain to me the difference between the 120B and C and DCS apart from having different wings? The C is able to maintain its energy better.
Yeah, better.
And it's got a better
fuel,
seeker.
Right? I think the fuel in the motor is different. I don't know. Somebody, I'm sure, can correct me on that. But I want to say it had to do with, like you said, the motor, and then down more specifically to the chemical compound of the fuel or something like that.
Well, there's that, but the size of the fins actually does play a difference when you talk about drag.
Right,
so
right.
smaller fins is less drag when you cut through the air, which correlates to better energy retention. So those are really, I'm sure there's other differences. The 120C probably has better guidance. I don't know that that's modeled in DCS. I'm going to assume the 120B and the C have the same guidance. Somebody in chat probably knows a little bit better, but the C has smaller fins, so theoretically it's not able to pull as much G. I think it doesn't have as much. It can't put as much G loading on the fins because they're not as big. But if it can fly faster, I mean, you can compensate with that by increasing the airspeed, so you can put it the same amount of G loading. But if we look here, Bad Lego's now firing a 120C at Plotty, and that's fired from 20 miles. Plotty responds with a 120C of his own. Bad Lego immediately defends, but Plotty on the other hand is not. Well, Plotty, it doesn't look like he's defending, but he's flying straight down.
He was supporting, but just doing it in a hot aspect. That's where Bad Lego looked like he was supporting, but in a much more of a better situation.
It looks like Plotty wasn't supporting very well, but he was almost in a completely vertical dive. So I think he was keeping it on its gimbal limit over the top of the aircraft instead of to the side. So they both defended pretty well. But you can see, if we look back at the map, the difference in defensive posture there. Now, that some of this is going to come down to how long the Bad Lego and Plotty waited to fire the missile. But the missile fired by Bad Lego made it significantly closer, about half the distance again from where Plotty's 120 is, closer to its intended target.
Yeah, that's his 20-mile shots right there. Both parties have a pretty decent amount of time and ability to get away from those shots. You know, I get the point of that shot, but I'd like to see these guys close in a little tighter before ripping those things.
I mean, that wasn't a bad shot. So here's the thing you got to think about with these SATAL rounds. I know I preach people should get closer, but something that I just thought about, and it's something that I do consider when I actually fly, that people need to think about, is that when you get closer, you're going to expend more fuel when you're trying to defend, if you have to defend something, because you have to increase your energy state in order to outrun an incoming threat. So if you fire from further away, you can more laxly defend, which equates to more fuel later on in the round.
And I think it also factors into what we were talking about earlier in the missile count too, because I know right now that if I'm pushing and I get, you know, that missile warning far earlier than I was expecting to, I'm just not going to shoot and turn around, because now I know you're just down one more missile. Why would I shoot into a low probability shot right there when I already know I've made you shoot a low probability shot? So I think that stuff factors in too, guys, having that, you know, knowledge to go, okay, wait a minute, I don't need to shoot here because he just took a bad shot. You know, a bad shot doesn't, you know, responding with another bad shot may not be the case there, right? Or maybe that's not the right term for it, but, you know, nevertheless, having the knowledge to go, wait a minute, I have an advantage here in this situation. I'm going to turn around and come back and wait for a better opportunity.
Somebody was saying that Bad Lego almost got clipped. A lot of times it looks like that, but there can be some severe altitude separation between a missile that's completely out of energy and its intended target, and it may get close, or what we think is close, but it still could be 1 to 2 miles behind. So it can be a little bit misleading. This missile was fired, I think, by Coma on the impact, and it is, see, that looks close, but that's actually 4 miles behind impact.
And that's another great part about having the live attack view up. You can really kind of get a better sense in a 3D, you know, position of where these planes are and where these missiles are. So with you guys with the live tack and stuff, you can kind of get a better perspective there.
So I encourage anybody that has TAC View Advanced to type !TAC View to get the IP address and the port that you need to connect to, but there is a live TAC View running at the same timestamp as the match, and you guys are able to pan around your own camera and get more information about what these pilots are doing while the match is taking place. So if anybody watches auto racing, it's kind of, you're getting your telemetry while being able to watch the pilots fly, which is pretty cool. Speaking of which, if we flip over to Bad Lego, we had him up momentarily or a little bit ago. Bad Lego's already down to 4 missiles. So we've seen him launch a couple, but I think we're starting to see some of the 16s especially. We're going to take a look at JG78 here in a moment, are already through half of their available weapons, which can be a little bit disheartening. I mean, when you're flying and you're starting to run low on weapons, let's say we get a little bit later in the match, you may not take a shot that could have resulted in a kill, swinging the advantage of the fight into your team's favor. So saving those weapons for a later time frame, I think, can help you in the long run. And so those 20-mile shots, you know, maybe just don't take them. Because if he shoots at you and then stays hot because he doesn't have a missile warning, well, maybe you can create a bag and drag situation or scenario. So those are things that it's not always applicable to shoot. Sometimes just turning away and not shooting is just as effective and can result more often than not in a better kill situation or scenario than what you would do just shooting from longer range. How many Mavs can the 16 carry? I think it can only carry 4.
I thought it was 6. I thought there was the 3 pilot. I don't know. I feel like this is a debated issue. Whether
I don't know.
It's either 6 or 4. Whatever is the reality there.
Cronin says none for now.
Yeah, none for now. Right?
That is true. Here's our first SD-10 fired at Bad Lego. Let's see if we can grab it. There it was. Where is it? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? There it is. So here's the SD-10 fired at Bad Lego, and Bad is out there at 5 miles, and it just bled a crap ton of energy doing something. Is that?
History, folks.
Yeah, that may be the first one. We're now down to 4 miles, but that thing is not going to catch Bad in this situation. He's too fast. He's over Mach 1. We can take a look at his aircraft and see if we can grab the missile.
But it's had to bleed a lot there.
From his point of view. Where is it? I don't even see it yet.
Yeah.
There it is. I think that's it right there. Nope, that's just a target. I don't even see the missile yet. It's here somewhere, but it's far enough away that we're having a hard time even finding it from Bad's position. So
yeah,
that should tell you everything that you need to know.
It's quite
But look how separated these guys are getting. I mean, look how separated JG78 is. TAW, at least, they're a bit separated, but they're staying in relative close proximity to one another. I mean, they're separated probably by 10 to 15 miles. But JG78, man, especially Coma, they're getting really separated. I mean, this is over 20 miles from Coma to Ma.
I haven't seen this, but I'm going to make it one guess and say this is where things take a turn for the worse.
You're basing that just on how separated they're getting?
Separated they are and how together and fluid TAW has been this whole match. missile count. I mean, it's not shaping up well for JG78 at the moment. Now, granted, this could completely turn the other way here, but it looks like they're sending TAW Impact to the north to keep those two busy while these three work those two to the south. I don't know. Just trying to figure out what exactly TAW's strategy here. It's like, I think they can see they have an advantage. It's trying to figure out what to do with it right now.
Mm-hmm. Let's look at Preacher. Just launched a 120, so let's take a look at his aircraft. And he's actually, Preacher's already down to 3 120s, so he's launched half of his complement of actives, which is, they're not taking him in very applicable situations. I mean, that missile was launched, if we look back at the map, that missile was launched from right about here on the plot. They're over 20 miles, and those may be effective in a PvP scenario on a public server because people have a tendency to overcommit, or maybe, you know, they're looking at another contact or something. But these situations, well, I say that. Where is it? Where's that missile? That thing's getting pretty close. There goes the chaff. I don't see it yet. It's here somewhere. There it is. Oop! Oh! We can see it. But again, I think it's further away than we thought it was. So that missile at its closest point was within a mile.
He turned at the right time there, that's for sure. If you watch the he just turned at the right moment. It felt
he turned at the right time, but that missile didn't get quite as close as we thought it did. That would be on the inner circle of his RWR. So that was an okay shot, but Plotty waited a long time to defend that and then still effectively defended it. So if Preacher would have waited even a few more miles, that would have been a much more effective shot. Bad Lego and Plotty are now exchanging. These are better 15-mile shots coming in here, but Plotty double taps. That's rough. I don't know if that was intentional. We can see the weapons headed out.
I thought maybe there was a twin shot, but no, there is nobody else in that vicinity.
No, I think maybe that was accidental.
Might have been. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt there.
Incoming missile from Preacher is now 1.5 miles behind Plotty. I don't know how much energy that's going to have. I don't think it's going to catch him. No, it's going to have to pull up and bleed a crap ton of energy as Plotty leveled out, and you can see that missile's just falling away. So even at 15 miles, when you aggressively defend like that, the missiles just don't have the available energy to be able to run you down because they've got to pull energy when they don't have an available energy source while you have this massive engine at the back of your aircraft. So still nothing's really going down. Nobody has died yet. JG78 still hugely separated. Hugely separated. I mean, we're talking 30 to 40 miles between two ship elements. But TAW, on the other hand, is staying decently close. I mean, Bad Lego and Spectrum are the most separated, and they're only 8 miles apart. So that's a little bit wide of a combat spread, but that could be an effective formation. I mean, 51st, that's what we used to do. So that's not a bad position to be in, and this missile's done. So don't worry about that one. That's not going to hit Preacher. Ma is just, this is a little bit concerning, but he is supported by Coma up to the north, and this is 10 miles. I'd like them to be a little bit closer. I like that Ma is now turning back into Coma to shorten that distance between him and his wingman. But if Impact were to launch a 120 on Coma, force Coma to be defensive, and then they were double sort Ma, that could be a problem. Shots being exchanged between TAW, I think it's Impact and Ma are firing now, and see, those missiles just don't have the available energy. I mean, we're down to 1,100 knots. Now, this one is just totally toast. There's no way it's going to catch Ma, and that one looks like it's on Impact, and Preacher just doesn't care. But yeah. Preacher's kind of lucky that missile... No, he's not lucky because that missile's at 4,000 feet and Preacher's at 25,000 feet, so that's why he didn't care about flying in front of its flight path. But JG78, Billy, almost looks like they have a concave position going against TAW.
They've certainly fanned out over a pretty wide area right now.
Right. Here comes here's a better shot. Here's a much better shot. This one was inside 10 miles coming in onto Coma, and Coma's maybe getting caught with his pants down. Where's the missile? There it is. 0.3 miles. He's dead. So he got caught with his pants down up at 30 or 40,000 feet and allowed a TAW combatant to get in close. So he gets taken out, and now we've got a possible another situation where Impact may be able to take down Ma. So we missed it, but Coma was able to trade with one of the TAW guys. I think it was Preacher. So Preacher went down. So Coma was in a pretty good firing position, and he was able to take down Preacher because of his firing position. Oh, and Plotty got taken down. I missed that. Yeah. Plotty got taken down. So we'll have to revisit that in the TAC view, but that's unfortunate. Didn't see what exactly took him down, but things are starting to unfold here. And that really was just a result of JG78 pilots getting caught too close to their adversaries and at too high of an altitude. So let's take a look at Ma. Ma's got 2 120s left, and he's ingressing in here against... Who's he coming against? This is against Impact. So Impact is launched at him. So Ma has a missile coming at him, and Impact has a missile coming at him. So let's go to split view so we can see both of these guys defending their incoming threats. Don't see Impact's missile still a distance away, and Ma's missile that he's trying to defend is now just coming inside 2 miles. So both of these guys are going to be perfectly fine. Impact realizes that his missile that he's trying to defend is actually out of energy, so he's recommitted. I like that. Awareness right there. Bad Lego, meanwhile, down to the south, is trying to run down Moo, and TAW is now out on an all-out offensive.
Yeah, and this is, we talk about the strategy of being so far separated. TAW was able to kind of thin out the middle portion of that formation that JG78 was having. And now you have the two guys on either ends who are just so far from one another that they can't help each other. They're just both in their own worlds trying to deal with things. And I don't get the feeling that's going to end the way they want it to.
No. We got a 120 coming in on Moo. 0.5 miles, 4 miles is going to have the energy to stay with him. 2 miles, 1 mile. I don't think it has the energy to turn. You can see it right there off to the right, flies right behind him. And that last turn from Ma was all it took to bleed that thing completely out of energy. Totally out of energy. So let's keep him on the screen and see what's going on. We can see him and TAW Impact now coming in. I'm going to see if we can grab them. So now we're watching from both of these guys' perspectives, and Ma just recommits in a bad position, but I guess that missile, is his pilot dead? Yeah, his pilot's dead. So Ma just recommitted in a really bad place. I think maybe he lost his situational awareness there, but he was way too close to his adversary to be able to effectively recommit.
And he's got the weapons to pull this off, but a low probability situation right now for the last remaining pilot from JG78.
And 120's been launched from Bad Lego, and you can see it ingressing on Moo's position. Half mile, 0.2 miles, and that was a case of him just being too fast there as we go under the ground, but too fast there to effectively notch, and too close with not enough energy to be able to get away from the incoming threat. So Maz says, Maz sounds like mouse. Okay, well, I will utilize that. So Maz is now mouse. Okay. I'm going to laugh when he doesn't fly next round. But well played by both teams. Billy, I really liked the defensive approach there by both teams. That once things started getting going, they really got going. But it seemed like that both teams had the same mindset coming into that round, in that they wanted to bleed their adversary out of energy. At least that's what it seemed like.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think this round was a bit more reflective of a Diamond League match than a Gold League in the tactics that were used. I think we saw some pretty good composure on both sides for some of the match. Other parts, I think we saw a little. I saw some double taps on both sides of things, and that was a little disappointing. I think at the end of the day, just staying on top of the missile conservation thing.
Yeah.
But Todd did a very good job, I think, of reading what JG78 was doing and reacting very well to it.
Preacher says Moz is more like with the sound that cats make. Meow? Oh, meows? Is that how you'd pronounce that?
Meows.
I'm confused. Somebody give me like a enunciation breakdown. Like type it out how I should say it.
Phonetically, I think.
Give me a phonetic breakdown here. And looking at Bad Lego's aircraft, just since we're riding along with him, he doesn't have any missiles left. So weapon amounts did come into play there. At least that's what I'm assuming. If we take a look at Impact's aircraft, Impact only has one AIM-9. So they did a decent job here of running these guys out of weapons. They just.
I'm going to maintain that. I think the separation is what did them in there. Those two guys had been closer towards the end of that to be able to support one another. This may have gone a different way, but TAW just thinned out the middle of that, I guess umbrella style kind of formation. They were forming around TAW. TAW just kind of ate their way through the middle and then started worrying about the flanks. And I just don't think JG78 was expecting to have those two guys separated like that at the end. There was just nothing they could do for each other.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess there was probably 30, 40 miles of separation between those two when it was all said and done.
Well, I don't even think it was just those two. I mean, if you look back at the Northern 2 ship for JG78, they as a 2-ship element were hugely separated. And they were TAW was able to pick them off one by one instead of it being a 2-on-2. And that's really that was the swinging. That was the time of swing. I mean, who was it? Coma died, but he took down Preacher. So that was a case of him getting in too close at too high of an altitude. I think he was like 10 miles away, and if you get caught with your pants down at that altitude, you're dead. There's not much you can do.
Yep.
Yeah. And then who was the guy down south? I don't remember now.
Mouse.
We'll call him Mouse. He was down south, and he was just totally isolated. Impact did a really good job of keeping the pressure on him and keeping him out of the fight.
Agreed.
So, just waiting on these guys to finish up their RTB back to base. Looks like JG78 is having them RTB back to Napa. So Impact's almost there. He's 3.5 miles away so far. So that shouldn't be a problem. I don't see any of these guys really dialing back the engine RPM.
Yeah, I'm going to guess these guys are going to be able to pull this off. It might be a close one, but especially with all those Hornets in the mix.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be... Impact's almost down. He's at 200 knots, and he's fine. He's going to be perfectly fine. I think the fuel management by these guys was good enough. They stayed at altitude, at a high enough altitude that they were able to get some fuel economy back there. The Hornet, just in general, does really well with fuel economy. TAW Impact looked like he's going to be the first one back to Napa, bringing this round home for the TAW team as they go up 1-0 over JG78 in a really well-fought round. I mean, the end result doesn't necessarily put into perspective how well JG78 did in that round. Their downfall was their separation, but they did a really good job of not committing in too deep for the majority of that round. Their other downfall was simply that it seemed that their pilots tried to recommit in unwinnable situations. They were recommitting while an adversary maybe had, was 6 miles away and was hot on them while they were cold and they were just trying to bring it around, in that situation, you're just going to die because you're not going to be able to get your nose around fast enough before the enemy's weapon gets to you. Because he's going to put a weapon on you unless he's missing brain cells. He's going to put a weapon on you. And you're not going to be able to get around fast enough in order to put a weapon on him and be able to dodge the incoming threat. So best case scenario in that situation is that you're going to trade, which is what ended up happening with Coma and Preacher. So Coma did make the best of his situation by at least taking out one of his counterparts on the other team. But obviously you would like to live in that situation.
I think knowing when to drive closer and knowing when to get a little separation, possibly one of the hardest intuitions to develop when you're in these BFM dogfights and whatnot. Knowing when you need to kind of drag out and create a little separation versus turning in to pull it can be a really challenging thing at times. And I think it sounds like a simple thing and when you talk about it, but when you really get into the moment with it can be a much more challenging thing, especially with that internal desire to keep driving in and keep fighting, especially with how aggressive I think a lot of the guys who fly SATAL can be. Sometimes, you know, that thought in the back of your head telling you to turn and drag back towards your buddies is difficult to listen to.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Billy, give me your spiel about how you think that round went. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but how do you think it went?
I think at the end of the day, JG78, whether it was a plan, part of the battle plan, or whether it was just something that happened by proxy of events, allowing themselves to get that separated over in that thin, right? There was just no, it was a single line. So, I mean, once one guy got picked through, it made things exponentially harder for the guys around him. And I think, you know, maybe just reevaluating how they approach handling TAW in that manner is going to help them best for the next round.
All right, well, let's switch over and take a look at TAC View. We're going to look at a couple situations instead of just breaking the entire round down. But let's look at TAC View. We're going to see, starting with Coma, what ended up happening there, and then I'm going to check and see what happened with Mouse in the center and what caused him to get taken out. But let's start with Coma and his situation of being high and then getting taken out by overextending. So here we are in the TAC View. We're about 43 minutes into the match. They didn't take off until, I think it was like 18 minutes in. So, Billy, this was a pretty slow match. I mean, Anapa and Maycop aren't too far apart in SATAL standards. There's much longer maps or mission locations in this scenario. So this was a long match by comparison of what we've seen so far this year. But let's pay attention. There was a lot of dancing. Let's pay attention to Coma and the two ship of Preacher and Impact, specifically Preacher down here to the south. So I'm going to grab Coma and Preacher. The first thing that I noticed in this situation is that both of the TAW guys are cold. So that may have given Coma some overconfidence in continuing to come in. And I think he may have been looking at Impact and not Preacher in this situation. So you can see now he's swinging to Preacher. So I think he was looking at Impact and not Preacher. There goes the missile. 10-mile separation when that came off the rails. And Preacher immediately launches as a counter. And you can see when you're caught this high, there's not much you're going to be able to do in order to get away from that weapon. I think he would have been Coma would have been better served instead of diving in this situation to just turn around. So just come around and get the hell out of Dodge. So maybe dive a little bit to turn around. But when you're diving from this altitude into a missile that's this close, you're really just allowing the missile to maintain its energy because it doesn't have to climb up as high to meet you. It's just flying flat, pulling lead pursuit because it's able to pull lead pursuit at a lower altitude than where you are, and you're just going to fly in and meet it. So if you were to stay high and turn around, you're now forcing the missile to climb altitude-wise, and you're going to be running away from it shortly after that. So I could be talking out of my butt, but in this situation, and this is something hard to recognize, it may have been better for him to just turn around, but on the flip side of that coin at this altitude, he's not going to be able to do that very quickly because he's only at Mach 1.1, and you don't have a lot of lift at this altitude. You're going to bleed speed rather quickly when you go into that turn. Taking a look down here at Preacher as this missile comes in. He tries to notch it, but I think he would have been better served just by turning away. Well, no. There's no way he was going to outrun that. You can see it's at Mach 3.5 as it comes in. Now Mach 3, and I don't think he was going to outrun that. So he doesn't commit to the notch. You can see that he's not. He just puts it on his like 45 at his 4 o'clock or so, and doesn't commit into the notch or any type of defensive posture. I don't know what he was doing there. He wasn't near fast enough to be able to run away from that at 0.8 Mach. So not really sure what happened there. This is, I think, when Mouse dies. So if we fast forward here a little bit. Or did we miss somebody? Did we miss somebody? Oh, it's not Mouse that dies. It's Plotty. Okay, so Plotty comes in here against Spectrum. Separated now by 12 miles. Plotty's at 25,000 feet. Spectrum's at 11,000 feet. He lofts this missile up. And this may just be a case, Billy, of Plotty not defending. I kind of wonder if he has his RWR. No, he's defending now. He just waited too long, and he's not fast enough to get away from that.
Might have been just some sorting of things in the cockpit. Took a little bit longer than he would have liked.
Oh, no, he does get away from it. He blacks out.
Oh.
So he goes straight down, and I think he just doesn't have the available G. So if we go and look at his cockpit, he's going straight down from 20,000 feet. And this just may be a nerves thing. He's over Mach 1. Let's see how many G he pulls when he pulls. Or maybe it was desync. I don't know what happened there.
Try going back a bit and looking at him but right when he shoots. See what his G is before he...
I think he gets hit. I think it may just be desync.
Might be.
I think it's desync. I
It
think he gets hit.
look, I was gonna say it looked like before from what I was watching on the TAC view. It looks like it doesn't. I mean, he gets there, but he's not. He doesn't go over 10 or anything like that.
No. I think that's. And the hills in this area aren't very tall, so I think that's just a little bit of desync. And he actually gets hit. So this is another case of not defending early enough and thinking ahead of the airplane, and he waits too long before he defends to be able to defend it properly. So. That's where really nothing else worth looking at takes place in this match. I mean, Moo gets run down here to the south, and Mouse gets run down. What I was talking about recommitting SA-wise happens here shortly. I think it's right. He gets run down. He dodges that 120. It's right here. So he recommits, and you're not going to win this fight. It's not going to happen.
He did a good job hanging in there, but no.
He did.
He
did. In this situation, though, granted, the terrain doesn't help you out very much. You got to find some way or something to recommit around. I would have liked to see him, instead of defending to the north, defend to the south, and have Moo defend to the north, and then they regroup and then try and lose them in the mountains or something. But when you're outnumbered and you're on the defensive, there's not much you can do. So
when I was watching it live, I saw it like he gets the 1v1 he needs because Spectrum breaks away and turns around. I don't know how long he had there, but nevertheless, I almost had the window there to kind of maybe make that a 1v1 instead of a 2v1.
Maybe. He did have a bit of a window. I don't know if he had any weapons left. That could have been another case where he didn't have any. He didn't have any 120s left. Did Red has 2 AWACS? Did they not have an AWACS?
I wasn't looking.
They have 2 AWACS.
I want to say I saw from the attack.
Cronin, you just couldn't see him on the screen. They're there. You just couldn't see him.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think we would have heard about it had there not been a red AWACS in there just based on those airframes.
Yeah. But they were there. The reason for the 2 AWACS per team is if teams want to use the E3 or the A50, you can choose. You can actually disable one or the other. They should fly opposite sides of the flight path, so it's just having them there, one of each, just to have. That's why they're there. Billy, any closing remarks while I start getting the second round set up?
Oh no, I think from what I saw there was a fairly even match. Just a couple of decisions go differently, and I think we maybe get a different result out of it. So, like I said, fairly close. Some smarter decisions here and there on both sides, and I think we get a similar match in round two.
Yeah, I think if JG78 is able to keep things a little bit closer together and defend a little bit earlier, thinking ahead of their airplane a bit better, the match could have been much, much closer. Granted, it was close. The results don't really showcase how close that match was.
Right.
Because once things start going, they typically
Yep.
grow exponentially, and it's really difficult to overcome that first casualty. So that was closer than I think people realize. But I'm gonna
JG78 for being thinking a little bit outside the box and coming in with something different.
Yeah.
We don't normally see here. So.
For sure. So I'm going to send this back to the Supercut for this match, done by Alpha Whiskey. Shoutouts to him again. If you guys haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you do that. I post all of the full stream replays on there. You got to fast forward through the beginning because I don't edit them at all. I'm not that dedicated to my craft yet. But the full stream replays are on there. They come up about a week after they air. So if you want them right after, you guys can join Patreon, and they get them immediately. Just some benefits for the Patreon patrons, if you will. But we're going to move on to round two. Currently, TAW is up 1-0 over JG78. Let's take a look again at Alpha Whiskey Supercut, and I will see you guys back here in just over a minute and a half. So enjoy this. More DCS action coming at you here in just a minute. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just getting the tracks all synced up so we can jump into this. I think I'm ready to go. Tracks are synced up, so we will be jumping into the action here momentarily. But, Shaq, what did you guys think of that match, how it played out? What do you guys think the teams could have done better? What do you think they did well? What do you guys think what are your guys' considerations? Haven't even considered the Jeff, to be honest, but I'll have to add that in. Oh, I missed Xander's earlier comment. The good thing about these matches is that they highlight the strengths and weaknesses of the F-16 and F-18, which is helpful as I'm looking to get one soon. The F-18 is more complete than the F-16. I prefer flying the F-16 more because I feel the F-18 feels like I'm flying a dump truck. At least that's how I feel personally. So I like how the F-16 flies. It feels more like a pilot's aircraft than the 18 does. The 18 feels like the 15 where it's more on rails. And I just don't like the way that feels. That may just be me, but I like to feel like I'm in more control of my aircraft, and I just don't feel that way with the 18. I don't for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why. Okay. Things should be ready to go. Everything's synced up. Got the guys watching JG78 here at Napa. So let's jump in and see how these guys are going to get on. I think I screwed something up here. There we go. No. I'm pushing the wrong button. There we go. We're ready to go. So let's jump in. Watching JG78 taxi out of Napa. Here we go. Get caught back up on chat. Rat Pupils, if you're here, thanks for the Prime sub you subbed a couple days ago. Welcome to all the new followers. If you guys, anybody's just joining us, this is SATAL 2020. Why is that a black screen? Okay, there we go. This is SATAL 2020. And SATAL is a squadron versus squadron event where squadrons take on other squadrons in a battle for air supremacy. Teams you're seeing are TAW Wolfpack taking on JG78. JG78 is a German team. TAW has guys from all over the place. And TAW currently is up 1-0 over JG78. Flatspin says, I think they aren't calculating no escape ranges very well. Nerves maybe. Possibly, but these guys may know their no escape ranges pretty well. But the nerves can get the best of people. And we've talked about this a little bit. Oh, it says TAW versus Baby Shakers? That's not good. I'll correct that. Let's fix that. My bad. There we go. That's fixed. Anyway, they may know the no escape ranges and the correction distances and all that stuff, but nerves, I think, can get the better of people and often do. So, Billy, we've talked about this. Nerves getting the better of people. People could, know their escape zones and when they need to defend, but just nerves could be getting in on them and they may not be thinking as clearly as they normally do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these are things I forget sometimes, even just in PvP play. So, let alone in an event. I mean, I know we had an event Saturday, and as someone who preaches this stuff all the time, I got killed, taken off in a hot star without an RWR on. So those things can happen. I mean, it's reality. And PSA checklists exist for a reason, guys.
Looks like I'm losing some fidelity here now. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's TACView. We're gonna see if it's TACView freaking everything out. So let's close. It was TACView. What do you know? TACView's eating up some frames. Watching JG78 depart. Plotty and Ma have taken off, or Mouse, and then we're waiting on Coma and Moo to depart here. So the JF-17 is going to be taking up the rear position, and the 316s are going to either be even or in front of him. What do you think, Billy, that JG78 needs to do to come out on top here?
I think try to give TAW as different of a look as possible in that first round. I think trying to come in and be aggressive and taking one of those guys out as quickly as possible after the way that first round went, probably in their best interest at this point.
I think what they need to do is really get the first kill. If they're able to get the first kill, this could very easily swing in their favor.
Need the momentum.
That's a tall order. I mean, it's not anything that they're not incapable. Just getting a kill in SATAL can be pretty difficult.
And side note, it does look like ED just confirmed the A10C2. Also,
I saw that.
Like the Scorpion helmet-mounted queuing system is going to be in the mix, which is very exciting.
I saw that. I'm kind of worried. I'm worried that we may see some tech creep here, and PvP may be in trouble. Where things, I know that's how real world is, but competitive play and, you know, trying to balance things is just going to get more and more difficult. And I know you and I have talked about in the past that we may have to go back to all aircraft being on both sides, which I'm wholly in support of for PvP play. Not just in SATAL, but in public servers and such. It's just, I think that's going to become more and more of a necessity as technology creep and as power creep continues to happen, because Red 4 is just not able to, we're not getting the modules that are able to compete for the red side that blue is getting.
It's true. I think, frankly, in my opinion, we're beyond the point where you can create some sort of viable red v blue situation with what's in the sim at this point, right? At least if you're talking, you know, trying to keep it as realistic with the airframes as possible. And you know, you see what a lot of these server admins do out there, and they're trying, but you're just creating more issues by doing that than you are by putting all the airframes on all sides. And you know, there's a lot of excuses, and a lot of this I think comes from the people who are newer to the sim and newer to air combat in general. You know, things like the RWR. Well, I want to know if I have a 16 pop up at my RWR, I know that's an enemy 16. Well, you know, life doesn't always work like that in the real world, and there's a lot more that goes into it than just knowing the fact that a 16 is targeting you as the bad guy 16. So I just think those things we need, as a community, need to move away from, and coddling people kind of in those type of things there, right? You know, that's not going to affect balance as much as those airframes being on you know, creating an environment where balance can take places, right? So I don't know, I think there's a lot that needs to happen with the whole PvP community. It's not in great shape right now. There's not a ton of great surfers out there. You're very limited in your choice of what to do. And I think I still truly think a lot of that has to do with how bad the sim ran for a few months there. And I really do think the PvP community took a big hit on people just walking away, because it just, you know, with how much rubber banding was taking place for as long as it was, there was no point in doing it. You were fighting an uphill battle, and that may be even be a comical way of explaining it at that point, where it doesn't justify it enough how bad it was. But you know, I think it's going to take time now for that to kind of recover from all that, and hopefully some of these modules coming out in the near future start bringing people back into the fold. That would be nice, but I think we're going to need some sort of superiority fighter to really, you know,
we'll have to see,
do that.
Now back to the match at hand. TAW Spectrum disconnected. He is 0 airspeed UFO currently on ingress to the AO. That means that TAW is down 3 pilots to JG78's 4. That may be... Is that the change? I mean, we talked about being the first kill. Did TAW just give them the first kill? Do you think TAW is going to be able to overcome that? I mean, that's... First kill, is that going to be detrimental to TAW's morale and swing things into JG78's favor? Or to play devil's advocate on my own point, is this going to give JG78 a false hope or a over-exaggerated confidence, like a inflated confidence level that is just going to end up getting deflated later? And key here, if JG78 is able to get the next kill, the actual first kill here, it's going to be really difficult for TAW to come back.
Agreed. Momentum is a fragile thing at this current state in the round and in the match in general, especially with TAW just losing someone to disconnect. That's going to be in their heads going into it now. Certainly a right moment for JG78 to capitalize, and it looks like first shot from JG78, a relatively long one there. I'm going to guess that's a 20+ mile shot.
Let me grab my ruler. That is 23 miles.
Yeah.
I don't like that shot. I
don't either.
It's too far away. It's not effective. One came from Plotty, one came from Mouse, and it's just too far away.
Maybe what they're trying to do here, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, is they're trying to maybe drive Bad Lego to the north and create some separation, because now that there's only 3, if they can force Bad Lego north very quickly.
But you're not able to do that when you're this far away. You're not able to create those situations and put yourself in a position where you can attack from a specific direction and force somebody else, like you're herding cattle, in the direction that you want. From this distance, that your target can defend whatever way he wants. So maybe that's what they were trying to do. I just can't see that as, that's not going to happen. But Bad Lego, they did get him to defend a very, very long way. I mean, he's still going 12 miles. He's been defending for 12 miles. However, something to point out, Plotty's missile that he launched, he didn't support. And you can see the new missile guidance system. That thing, it didn't use Magic INS. It's nowhere near Bad Lego because it wasn't supported. So I do like that. I just don't know why he's still defending. That's interesting. But everybody from TAW is now defending, and Bad Lego is now isolating himself. So he's going to the north like you suggested that maybe JG78 was trying to do, but he's doing it on his own. He's not doing it because he's defending that direction.
A lot more preparation on TAW's side. I'm going to assume that's from the fact that they lost someone and they're trying to cover a little bit more ground here. But we're seeing, I think, the effects already of that DC on TAW early on here as their game plan now kind of out the window, I would assume, and them having to be a little bit more reactionary to JG78 than as far as being in the driver's seat.
Right. And it was one of the 18s, so that they did lose quite a few missiles. They lost 2 more than they would have if it was a 16. They lost some of that fuel economy that Spectrum brought that the 16 doesn't have. Something I will point out that I have noticed during this matchup so far is teams and pilots are doing a good job of jettisoning bags when they seem to be out of fuel.
That is good for both evasion and for fuel conservation, right? You know, you're by leaving those empty bags on as you drag through the air, you're just worsening your fuel efficiency. So getting those bags off the wings as soon as they're dry is in your best interest for sure.
Looks like Bad Lego is now coming in against Plotty. Let's see if we can get both of these guys' positions. Here's Bad Lego's position. He just launched a 120, and I'm going to grab Plotty's position as he comes in.
They need to be helping that guy to the north there. They had the advantage on that fight, but now they've circled 4 or 3 down on those other 2 and are leaving it a 1v1 to the north there.
So we can see Plotty's contrails out there in the distance. Here comes the missile, and I think Plotty's defending too late. He's still way too high. That missile's going to have a ton of energy. Inside a mile, half mile, Plotty's dead. And he just waited way too long. And the early shot ended up working out for Bad Lego. That was a missile that I wouldn't normally like to see, but Plotty just waited, and I think he was waiting to get that missile off, and he waited too long. We talked about this a lot last year. Oh, that's from something else. We talked about this last year you've got a missile coming in on you, and then you wait to launch a missile of your own in retaliation, and more often than not, what ends up happening is you die because you're waiting too long. You're waiting too long to give your missile a really good trajectory, a really high PK chance, but you die because you're waiting. And that's exactly what happened to Plotty there. He waited. And because he waited, he may have thought that he had enough time to defend. He was way too high to effectively defend. And even though he started to defend maybe before he got the missile warning, that missile had more than enough energy because it wasn't getting pulled down into the thicker lower air. And instead of going away from the incoming threat, Plotty was going straight down, which meant that he wasn't lengthening the distance that the missile would have to travel, and the missile had more than enough energy by the time it reached its target to poke Plotty in his big metal butt.
Got to know when to hold him, got to know when to fold him, folks.
Yeah.
That is part of it here. That is definitely one of those type of situations right there.
So, good shot by Bad Lego. I think that was probably a 15-mile shot. Let me see if I can guesstimate.
Right around.
I think that was right around 12 miles. So that was actually a really effective shot. I like that shot. When you're shooting somebody that's at 30 or 40,000 feet, that right there is a good shot. Now, you yourself probably don't want to be at 40,000 feet that close, because if you are, you're going to have a tough time defending. You're going to have to defend hugely aggressive and split S and just hope that it doesn't hit you, because that missile is going to get at you like a freight train. But it was a good shot. I liked that. SD10 coming from Moo onto Bad Lego. I would have rather seen that on impact. What's at 16,000 and 27,000. So maybe his sensors were just going over impact at that point, and that's why he didn't see impact. But looking at that SD10, that thing's already down under 1,000 knots, and that thing is done. Dunzo. Coma takes this opportunity to launch a 120 in on impact. That's from 20 miles, and then stops supporting it. He stopped supporting that missile from when the missile was still 12 miles away. And the missile's going to lose some energy because when it stops support, you stop supporting it and it's not active yet, it goes into its INS trajectory, right? So that's not going to be an optimum flight path. So you could lose some energy in that situation because it's going to have to overcorrect once it gets it back. There's a missile coming in on impact, and it's too far. It's behind him. I don't even see it. Bad Lego just launched. There's the missile, 1.5 miles behind him. Bad Lego just launched a 120 onto Mouse, and Mouse had launched a 120 onto Bad Lego. So let's take a look at the map here. Bad Lego's defending the incoming 120. Mouse is defending the incoming 120. Mouse isn't defending quite as aggressively as Bad Lego. He was flying more into the weapon. I think it was to support his 120. Bad Lego had just broke off. But Mouse, I don't remember who fired first. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. But what does matter is we're down to a 3v3. Bad Lego now launching at Coma, and that may be a good shot too. That's 11 miles, so that's not a bad shot. Coma's at 12,000 feet. Where is it? There's the missile, 5 miles away. He's at 560 knots, coming through 11,000 feet. This is going to be close. This is going to be really close. Inside 2 miles now. Coming up inside a mile. I don't think it's going to catch him. Nah, it's not going to catch him. Half mile. So Coma defended just at the last possible moment, but he was able to get away from that missile decently well. Now Impact is coming in against Mouse down from the south. He's launching a 120 in against Mouse. Mouse is double tapped and put 2 120s out against his adversaries. Let's see if we can grab a split screen here and see these missiles coming in. Mouse is defending. There comes the incoming threats. And nothing's going to end up happening. Mouse drives his missiles, his incoming threats into the ground. Impact drives his into the ground. And both of those are going to be totally trashed. So neither of those is going to be any type of threat to either one of those pilots. We're still down to a 3v3. And weapon situation has got to be starting to get a little bit bad. 120 coming in against Moo now, and he's high. Moo is in big trouble. 120's coming in from the right. You can see it 3.5 miles away. He got the missile warning, but he's still way too high. Only 400 knots, 1.5 miles, 1 mile now, and that 120's like a dog on the scent, and he's dead. Boop. And his wings get ejected from his aircraft. And that was another case of just getting caught too high, too close to a threat. Too high and too close. And that's just nothing you can do. And Coma gets taken down. We saw his aircraft get hit by a incoming missile. And sorry we missed that. But now there's a missile chasing Preacher. It got within 0.3 nautical miles, but he was able to defend abruptly and effectively. You can see it impact behind his aircraft. Not sure if Coma just waited too late, but we're down to a 3v1, the same type of situation that we had at the end of last round. Bill, you think there's any way that Mouse is going to get out of this? I don't think so.
It's going to take a ninja cheese type effort to pull this off, I think, at the end of the day.
And I don't think we have the terrain in this situation to be able to make that happen.
Yeah, no. His best bet here is maybe a twist shot. I don't think trying to pick off one of these guys one by one is going to work.
No, well, it might, but he launched a missile out on Impact. Impact drove that in the ground. Mouse is defending a missile on him, but Mouse only has one 120 left, and he's being pursued by Preacher. So Preacher is 7 miles behind him. You can see the red dot up there, and Preacher, this is, don't recommit into that. What are you doing? Don't do that. He recommitted, and this is Mouse is dead. Yeah. 1 mile, half mile. See you later. Don't recommit like that. No. Why? Why, oh, why? Why do that? Maybe it was just because he didn't think he didn't have a chance.
He was probably doing the math on that situation and knowing that he was outgunned and out ammoed on it. So
maybe, but that was.
And I think we see guys here know when they're in a no-win situation, and a lot of times we'll see guys turn around and face the music. So I think that was.
I don't think that was a no-win situation. If he could have dragged to the hills. That's what you have to do. Don't give up. Don't give up.
Certainly a valid point to make there that, those hills were in play and he could have dragged there and possibly
absolutely
shaken a few of those guys and turned some things around there, no doubt.
Yeah.
It's going to cost fuel, though. That is going to cost a lot of fuel down there.
Maybe, but it also could have cost TAW both Impact and Preacher's only remaining weapons, and Bad Lego too. Bad Lego only has one 120 left, right? So if we look at
kills.
Impact has 2 120s left and an AIM-9, but if you get in the mountains and you create situations where you think your adversary has a decent shot, and then dive behind a hill, you're forcing them to waste weapons, which is, you got to do that in order to try and give your team a chance. Recommitting and just throwing in the towel and just saying, I don't really have a shot, I'm just going to get in here and see if I can take somebody down with me. That to me is tetramount to giving up. And I'd rather these guys try and make something happen, which is really the only way you're going to make something happen in this situation is either build enough space where you can recommit and get the altitude back, or try and navigate to some type of terrain that you can hide in.
Yeah, no, there's certainly a point to be made that if you can maneuver your opponents in that situation into using their available missiles. Now, 2 guys have to try to maneuver in on you for a gun skill. I mean, they're barely going to be able to, do that without getting in their own way, possibly in that situation. Not to say that TAW would struggle there. They I would assume they'd probably handle that pretty well. But nevertheless, that can be a challenging thing for 2 guys fighting 1 guy to try to get a gun skill because nobody has any missiles left. So that's certainly a valid point there. Trying to work those remaining missiles out is definitely your best strategy when you're outnumbered like that.
Captain Cleveland says it's tough under fire. Competition usually makes people make bad decisions. That is true, and we've talked about that repeatedly. But it's something that these guys, you got to overcome if you want to make it to the top. You got to be able to overcome it and realize that you have to make really good decisions when you're under pressure. I mean, that's what in professional sports, that's what the really good players are able to do. They're able to make good decisions when they're under pressure. And honestly, they end up making better decisions when they're under more pressure, the really, really good ones. So it's we'll use this as a learning moment, and part of SATAL Gold League is allowing teams to come in and grow as teams. A lot of teams are really new to this. So it's going to be important that people realize that, hey, instead of doing that, I probably should have waited, and then making sure that they put that in practice later on down the line. Zero, just make better decisions. Yeah. That sounds like something my parents would have said to me. You screwed up, just make better decisions. Well, I realize I come across more as I'm telling these guys that, they're wrong or whatever. And the hindsight is always 20/20.
Absolutely.
I want to see teams, when we see them again, try and make a better decision if this moment presents itself later on down the road in another match.
It's very valid to point out that not only do we not have a complete set of information, it's not like we've interviewed these teams and asked about what happened there or what happened at this point. Working off the information that we kind of have in front of us, and we're making observations based upon that. So it's not always I wouldn't say it can be sometimes our evaluations can be lacking of certain information, and that's certainly worth pointing out, I think, at the end of the day.
Here's TAW Preacher over the wing. We can see TAW Impact up there. And after the disconnect, Billy, nobody died from TAW.
Impressive. They kept it together there.
They did. They overcame that huge blow to morale of losing somebody. I mean, a disconnect is almost worse than having somebody die, in all honesty. Because you're having to, especially when it happens early in a match, you're having to carry that into the first engagement and throughout the entirety of the match. So they were able to overcome being a pilot down for the entirety of this round. If they're able to put it down, they'll end up taking it 2 rounds to 0. And I was a little worried there that Preacher was going to run into Impact, but maybe that was planned. Maybe that was a planned maneuver. Scare the shit out of your wingman.
I'm curious how long this group from TAW's been flying together. They look like a group that has been with each other for a little bit, just the way they're moving out there.
I think most of the older squadrons have been flying together for a while. Preacher, any of the TAW guys, was Preacher in TAW last year, or is he a newcomer? Bad Lego was there last year. I remember that.
I remember that name for sure. As a Lego fan from my childhood, that one stands out.
Switch back to Impact as he's going finals here at Maycop. And then Preacher will be coming in after him, followed by Bad Lego. So Bad Lego in his F-16 is going to be bringing up the caboose. Preacher is actually in chat. He says he's been in TAW for 5.5 years. Yeah, I do remember. You flew last year. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember. Sometimes it just takes my brain's gears gotta.
A lot of call signs floating around in there from SATAL.
Come over.
A whole lot of call signs.
Impact's able to put it down. Now looking at Preacher, followed by Bad Lego as he brings up the rear, brings up the caboose of this train. Preacher puts it down nice and smooth. If I had to critique the landings, I'd like to see him landing on opposite sides of the runway. Preacher says he didn't fly last year. Okay, so I wasn't going crazy. Name looks familiar, though. Probably seen you in public servers. That's probably why. And Bad Lego rounds it out and closes out the round for TAW. TAW taking it 2 rounds to 0. But I want to reiterate that JG78 did really well. I mean, that was...
this is a well-flown match.
It was. 4v4, I think once you lose your first aircraft, it's a lot more difficult to overcome than in Diamond League 6v6 because you're starting with less aircraft, right? So, but that on the flip side of that, I applaud TAW for being able to fly that and come into this round with 3 aircraft because Spectrum ended up disconnecting and not losing another aircraft. So well done by them too. Well done by both teams. In this round, what in this round, Billy, was JG78's detriment? What put them on the back foot?
Tough to say in that second match. I think just based upon what I observed, it was more or less decision making there, where just getting themselves into some situations where they probably should have avoided or maybe tried to drag back to some teammates there. I don't know. I think that the tact view, I didn't have the luxury of looking at it from multiple perspectives while we watched there, like I did in the first one. But I'm assuming the tact view will kind of allude to some of that.
Well, speaking of the tact view, let's take a look. I'm going to bring it up and see what happened. So we're going to skip the first bit of it. But let's see what happens. So Spectrum disconnects, and we're going to start with Bad Lego's kill on Plotty. So this shot comes from 14 miles. Not a bad shot. Bad Lego is at 28,000 feet. Plotty's at 30,000 feet. Plotty's not very fast. It's concerning when you're that high and only at 0.9 Mach. Because when you're that high and you're that slow, you put yourself at a serious disadvantage when you need to defend. Because it's hard to accelerate when you're that high, right? So he's 0.9 Mach. Bad Lego's in a much better position at Mach 1.1. I'd like to see him a bit faster, but... tanks and all that stuff. So Good shot. A respectable shot. Missile comes off the rail. Mach 3.5. Plotty starts to defend. You can see his energy's now dropping even further as he's turning away from that missile. He's now Mach 0.6, almost half a Mach. You got to be fast. And you can see why you need to be fast. Because if you're slow, by the time the missile gets to you, because it's flying at Mach 3 or 2.5 by the time it actually gets to you, you're still going to be high. Not good. You're not forcing the missile down to thicker and thicker air. So you got to make sure if you're going to be flying fast or flying high, you got to be fast. Plotty's the first casualty. Good shot by Bad Lego, recognizing a slow and high combatant. Next casualty. Nothing happens here for a little bit. I think the next casualty is going to be Coma. So Coma's the next one. And I don't know what happens here. I think what ends up happening here is Coma tries to support his missile maybe for too long. I think he dies here. No, he doesn't. That was wrong. That's not the time that he dies. When does he die? Oh, it's not Coma. Coma's not the next one. It's Mu. So Mu's the next one that dies. So if we go up here and look at Mu, this is coming from 10 miles. This is a good shot. 10,000 feet, 25,000 feet. That's a better airspeed position, but Mu waits too long to defend. And you can see the missile here is when he starts to defend, the missile's already 5 miles away. It's still Mach 2.5. Mu is still at 25,000 feet. You can see how slowly this missile is bleeding energy because it's still at 20,000 feet. And by the time you start to defend and you're diving, you're also allowing the missile to dive. And you're just not going to be able to do anything. This is why it's really important that even though you don't have a threat coming into you, it's really important as you get closer to start to descend and get that energy back. If you don't, this is exactly what can happen and will happen in thoothese situations. So Muga is the next casualty. He gets taken out. Next one is going to be Coma. These are all decent shots coming from TAW. They're all right around 10 miles, which I like. I'd like to see them a little bit higher when they're launching, but, you know, can't be perfect every time.
I think with the absence of terrain, things kind of got dragged down into the weeds here for a lot of both of these matches.
That's definitely possible. Coma in this situation, he just doesn't defend. There's no... I think he tries to split S, and then he breaks out of it and recommits in the same direction.
Is great shot timing from Preach there, I believe, because it looks like he timed it on the recommit, and as he gets the pitbull, as he's coming around in that transitive energy state, and there's just not much you can do. At least this is what it looked like. I may be off on that a little bit there, but it appeared as if
he's not recommitting here. He's flying straight, so he gets the missile warning. You can see him go into a vertical maneuver. It may have been because
I thought they were further away.
Impact launched at him, so he was defending from two different directions.
Yeah, he just was trying to which way to go there.
I don't know. But if you don't...
When the RWR may not have updated as quickly, the aircraft's moving, the missiles are moving. When you're getting them from two different directions there, it can certainly be challenging like that.
Especially when you're rolling around, the missiles will show on different sides, and it can be hard to wrap your head around sometimes. This is the time that we talked about with Mouse, just recommitting. I would have liked to see him get down here into these hills that are down here to his southwest, but he just recommits, and the distance here on his recommit is 6 miles. He's dead. He is definitely dead. There's nothing you can do in that situation. The only thing he could have done to make this work, would have been to recommit directly into Preacher, launch a Mad Dog 120, don't even bother trying to lock him, Mad Dog 120, and immediately go into a notch. So you should be starting to bleed all of your airspeed coming into this turn, launch, notch. That's the only thing you can do to come out on top in this situation. But instead, I guess he was going to launch at Bad Lego, but maybe he didn't recognize that Preacher was there and just recommits into him. Preacher puts a really good 120 in on him when he's recommitting. Mouse probably doesn't even know there's a missile coming in because he's in a bank turn, and you're not going to get a missile warning coming off your lift vector. So good shot coming there, and he rolls out and probably realizes I done effed up and just takes it. So well flown by TAW. in that situation. Well flown by all teams.
Agreed. That was a very good match.
And that brings us to the end. Billy, anything you'd like to say in closing?
No, I think I'm all set. I'm already ready for Thursday morning. Who do we got?
Thursday morning is going to be... Who is Thursday morning? I did not bring up SATAL. Thursday... Loading. One thing I don't like about my website is it takes forever to load. That's probably on me. Because images are probably too big or
something seems abnormal right now. Because it usually loads pretty faster than this, but it is...
That is a little strange. I don't know who's flying. Maybe we'll have to just check later.
Well, there will be a match Thursday.
There will be a match.
There will be flying.
There will not be webcams again Thursday because I'm still waiting. I ordered a new camera. And there will be webcams on Saturday, but my camera should get here on Thursday, but it's not going to be delivered before match time. So website does... Maybe website's updating. I've got it set to auto update, so maybe that's what's going on. But I don't know who's flying. So we're just going to leave it at that. Well flown by both teams. TAW ends up taking it 2-0. Oh, it did come up. So the match is up. Next week, or Thursday's match is going to be Harpia taking on ECV56. And I don't think we've Seen Harpia fly yet.
As I say, a new team there.
Yeah, we have not seen Harpia fly yet. We haven't seen ECV50. No, we did. We've seen ECV56 fly, but we have not seen Harpia fly. So we've got another new team coming. And then Saturday's match is going to be Task Force Trident taking on Phoenix Task Force. That's going to be Saturdays when we'll get the webcams back. So that is who's flying this weekend. If you guys are just joining us, all the links that we're referencing are down in the panels below. I think it should say SATAL. That'll take you to the SATAL website where you can see the schedules. I would advise you, if you don't want to know what's going to happen, because we stream all these from replays, if you don't want to know what's going to happen, stay away from the website because there are all of the scores and everything. They are all on there. But if you do want to check out past matches with tracks and tack views, all of them are available for you to download. You would just go into the specific match, copy the links into your browser, and then you can go get them there. Real quick shout outs to all of our sponsors: Fox Mounts, TackView, Wild Weasel Apparel, and Buddy Fox. We're going to be giving away another shirt, right, Billy? Saturday for Wild Weasel Apparel. So be here for that. That's going to be Saturday. Again, all of our matches are at 1500 Zulu. So quick shout out to all of those. And then Eagle Dynamics and Keepler for providing the modules and the gameplay and the environment that we all love to fly in. Black Hog, our newcomer for the sponsors this year. I still haven't gotten my button box. It's on a boat somewhere. Hopefully that boat didn't sink. It's out there. I'm really excited about it whenever it gets here. And then Thrustmaster. If you guys are looking to get into the Flight Sim 2020, their new Airbus stuff looks pretty cool, and I may end up getting it for combat, at least the throttle part of it. So I'm looking forward to that. But that's all I got, and I think that's where we're going to bring it to a close. We should have another supercut for Thursday's match dropping either today or tomorrow morning. Again, the match is going to be Harpia taking on ECV56 Condor. Get excited for that one. I think it may be a solid one. I don't know anything about Harpia, but I think that may be a good matchup. So I'm excited about that one. Yep. That's all I got. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm send you out with the supercut. Have a good one. Fly safe. Go kill some people or virtual AI. And we'll see you back Thursday, 1500 Zulu, Harpia taking on ECV56. Have a good one.